Good morning and welcome to day 86 of Geriatric 1944's Coronavirus Diaries. Last night I was watching Pointless, yesterday evening, and on came a question about Will Smith. I always thought Will Smith was going to be the first black American president. An incredibly nice young man when I met him. That's a photo from when I met him way back when we put one of his records, Boom, Shake the Room, on the front cover of the tip sheet and broke the record in the Great Britain and actually worldwide. That's where it started here. And that was years ago. And there's me with Will Smith and his partner at the time, DJ Jazzy Jeff. Will came over several times to promote his record. I interviewed him for Entertainment USA and various other bits and pieces. But actually, the most important thing about Will was how he had that same quality that I'm told Bill Clinton has, which is when you're with them, you really do think that you are the only person in the world that matters to them. And that's very powerful. I remember years later, during my consultancy period, I got quite involved, not so much in the early days, although then, of course, I was a consultant for Jive Zomba. And that's where Will was originally when he was Fresh Prince and all that. He then moved over to Columbia, by which time I was consultant to CBS, Sony as they are now, which had Columbia. And I met him several times when he came over here and a couple of times in New York. An incredibly nice and bright young man. Also happened to be a great actor by later on. But I remember when I took him round with some other people, we went round, me and him and just another person or two, went around the CBS offices, and he'd been round before. And I remember him going round literally the telephone exchange at CBS in Soho Square, as the offices then were, and going up to one lady on the phone and saying, "Hello, Rosamond, how's Charlie?" And me seeing him do it to every one of them and thinking, how the fuck can he remember the names of people who he's only spoken to once, who work on the telephone, and not only them, but their children's names and everything else? He was unbelievable like that. But as I said, also a really talented actor. My favourite film of his, which actually would have been Pointless, was Enemy of the State, which I still think is one of the great films of all time. Admittedly, in that one, he's very much second fiddle to somebody who is, I think, still my favourite greatest American living actor, although God knows how much longer, because he's in his 90s now, Gene Hackman, who I think is just brilliant. I've always been a massive Gene Hackman fan, right the way back to, do you remember the French Connection in the early 70s? I always thought Gene Hackman was one of the great actors. At the time, then, he was one of my favourites, along with Paul Newman and a few others. Most of them are now dead, sadly, because they all get old, as I do. But in Enemy of the State, that's my favourite Gene Hackman film and my favourite Will Smith film. I've been very, very lucky to have met huge quantities of major megastars in acting, sports, politics, everywhere in my life, and I've loved doing it. And so as a result, what I'd like to do is, because they're all interesting people, most of them very, very nice people. The bigger the star, the more sort of mellow and pleasant and polite they seem to be. I mean, you really could hardly meet a nicer man than Cliff Richard. He is so nice, genuinely nice, and not nice in that rather horrid Christian way of never swearing and everything. He swears like a trooper, as much as I do. Fuck this and fuck that. But actually, really a nice human being. And most of them are. Well, yesterday I played you Lazy Bones, and I noticed putting up the sleeves and everything on the video. The B-side was a song of mine which I wrote actually for a friend who would now be in his 70s, which I spent one wonderful night with. But I think I'd like to apply this general philosophy to all the stars and all the other people I've met behind the scenes, because my life has been very interesting, not just as a singer and songwriter, as a record producer, but also as a consultant behind the scenes and record executive. So to all of you, stars and non-stars, everybody I met during my very happy 75 years of life, I just want to say thank you. See you tomorrow.
The evenings will come and go without you. The seasons will turn to gold without you. But I'll remember the night that I found you, the night that I loved you, the night that I lost you. And I just want to say thank you for giving me one little memory to think of forever, forever and ever. Thank you. I saw the doubts in your eyes when we started. I felt the fears reflect as we parted. But I'll remember the time that you loved me and trusted me deeply and only thought of me. And I just want to say thank you for giving me one little memory to think of forever, forever and ever. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you for giving me one little memory to think of forever, forever and ever. Thank you. The evenings will come and go without you. The seasons will turn to gold without you. But I'll remember the night that I found you, the night that I loved you, the night that I lost you. And I just